Hi, this is Carrie of Firefly Community. Welcome to our practice. Today I'll be taking you through a yin yoga practice focused on the second chakra, Svadisthana. Before we get started, I wanted to make sure you have a few things nearby that we'll use for practice today. If you have yoga blocks, 1 or 2 yoga blocks would be great to have for practice today. Otherwise, you can use pillows. It's great to have at least 2 pillows. I'm actually sitting on one right now. And then if you have a yoga strap, that's great. If you don't have a strap, you could use a towel, and it could be a small like hand towel or a larger towel. It will be just used to help us reach our foot if you can't reach your foot when you're lying down. And another thing that's great to have, especially if you don't have yoga blocks, is a water bottle. So a water bottle can be used underneath your hands to bring the floor a little bit closer to you if you don't have a strap or don't have a yoga block. So we'll get started today in Sukhasana, so an easy cross-legged position. And if you come into this pose and your knees are a lot higher than your hips, you can sit up on a pillow as I am to help your knees drop down. And then settle in and bring your hands to rest on your thighs, either palms face down or palms face up. Roll your shoulders back, close your eyes, and start to take some deep, full breaths. As you settle in here, I'll tell you a little bit more about the second chakra, the sacral chakra, which is located in the pubic area. So the pelvis, the hips, the pubic bone are all associated with the second chakra. The element associated with this chakra is water, and the color is orange. And so some of the things that are related to or have to do with the second chakra are our mobility and movement, our sexuality and sensuality, pleasure and pain, and also our creativity, which is part of why we're moving through this practice today, is to help tap into our creativity and help us kind of move that energy that might maybe be feeling stuck in that area, the second chakra. So as you take some deep breaths here with your eyes closed, bring your awareness to your pelvis. Feel the heaviness of your pelvis. Take some deep, full breaths. You might imagine that wheel of energy, the color orange. Chakra literally translates to wheel. Notice how your hips are feeling today. As we hold in this pose, also check in with your alignment. Draw your shoulders back, bring your head back so that your spine can be tall. And root into your sit bones. Take 3 more deep, full breaths here. And slowly open your eyes. If you're on a prop, you can come off of that. Stretch your legs out in front of you. Find some movement in your legs. Point and flex the feet, maybe tap your legs. And we'll set up first for deer pose, but we're going to take this in 2 phases. So first phase, bring your right shin parallel to the top of your mat and bring your left knee to bend beside you so that your knee is about at your front heel. I like to use my hands to move the flesh of my right thigh kind of back, roll it out so that you can be rooted at least in your right sit bone. And our two parts of this pose today, the first part, we'll start to walk back onto either your hands or your forearms, or I like to use a pillow underneath my forearms because I can get somewhat back, but that just gives me a little more support. And then this part of the pose, we're stretching the front of the leg that's back, so the front of the left thigh, a little bit into the left hip flexors to help prepare us for when we do set up for dragon pose in a little bit. And so this part of the pose will be 2 minutes, and then we'll fold over the front leg in our typical deer pose. And as you lean back, you're welcome to keep your gaze forward, or if it feels okay in your neck, you can open up your throat and let your head come back. And that might work for you for a period of time, but then if you get uncomfortable or your neck starts to get uncomfortable, bring your gaze back forward. And some of you may be able to come all the way down onto your back. I can't quite get there. If you do come further back and you find that your left knee lifts away from the floor a bit, that's okay as long as you're still feeling a stretch. For me, it helps to stay a little more lifted up on my forearms so that I can kind of press down into the left knee to give me a better stretch for the hip flexors and the front of the left thigh. So we have about 3 more breaths here in this part. And then, so to come out and to lift back up, press into your arms, forearms, elbows, hands. And then we'll all come up, readjust yourself. So if you found that you need to move the flesh of that right thigh back again, flex your right toes. And then now for regular deer pose, we'll just walk forward over your right leg. And you might find a deeper stretch in your outer right hip if you fold directly over your shin. If that's too much for you, you can fold more over your knee rather than your shin. And we'll hold in this part for 3 minutes. So if as you hold, if you're more over your knee and you find that you create some more space as you hold, you can come more over your shin. And then as you come forward, relax your shoulders, relax your head. And if you need a little extra support to help you relax your upper body, you could use your pillow underneath your forearms or underneath your head to help you relax. And throughout our practice today, I'll give you some mantras that are associated with creating balance in the second chakra so that if you want to give your mind something to do as you're in these poses, you might focus on the mantra. If you have a mantra of your own that you want to focus on, you're welcome to, or you could even just focus your attention on your breath, whatever works best for you. But for this first one, this pose we'll use, I deserve pleasure in my life. I deserve pleasure in my life. And we have 1 more minute here if you need to adjust anything. to come out of this part, use your hands to help walk yourself up. And then before we move to the other side, bring your legs out in front of you. And we'll take a windshield wiper of the legs. So you can plant your feet wide to the edges of your mat, lean back on your hands, let your knees fall side to side. Whatever pace feels good. And come back through center. We'll set up for the other side, starting with leaning back. So the left shin comes parallel to the top of your mat. Right knee bends beside you. Take a moment to get nice and rooted in that left sit bone. And then to come into this first phase, we'll walk back onto either your hands or your forearms or back onto a pillow or all the way down onto your back if that works. So with this first part, we're stretching the front of the right thigh and right hip flexors. Then you can either let your head come back and open up your throat if you'd like, or keep your gaze forward. And notice if this side is any different than the other side. We're in this part for 2 minutes. And water is actually the element that I feel most connected to. And one of the things that I love about water, especially the ocean and rivers and just any flowing water, is the power of water, and that it always finds a way, right? Like if there's always obstacles that come up, and like water, we can always creatively find a way around those obstacles to still be able to flow and move forward with whatever it is that we want to be doing or have in our lives. So it's one of the things that I love about water, and I love about the idea of the second chakra, is just always being able to find a way to stay in flow, even when there's obstacles. We have about 3 more deep breaths in this first part. And then those of you who are all the way back, press into your forearms, elbows, hands. And then for all of us, we'll make our way all the way up. Reset yourself up here so that your left shin is still parallel, your left toes are flexed, right knee is beside you. You have at least you're rooted in that left sit bone. And then to come into deer pose, we'll walk forward over either your left shin or your left knee, if folding over the shin is too intense for the outer hip to get started. We'll be here for 3 minutes. So if as we hold in the pose, you find that you've created some more space, you can lift up and then bring yourself more over your shin if you started out more over your knee. You can use your pillow underneath your forearms to help you relax a little bit more so you can release any tension out of your shoulders. And soften your jaw here as well, so you might open and close your mouth a couple times to relax your jaw. And soften your tongue away from the roof of your mouth. We'll come back to that same mantra for this pose. I deserve pleasure in my life. I deserve pleasure in my life. We're halfway through this part. And you might also be feeling a bit of a stretch for your low back here, depending on how far forward you've been able to come. And hopefully that outer left hip. Once you come out of this, use your hands to press yourself back up. If you had a prop, you can move that out of your way. Use your hands to help bring your legs out in front of you. I'm just going to turn back on my mat here. Plant your feet wide to the edges of your mat, knees bent. We'll take that windshield wiper the legs again, so you can lean back on either your hands or your forearms. Let your knees fall side to side. And then come back through center. Make your way down onto your back. For a reset pose, you can either take pentacle, which is like a 5-pointed star with your arms and your legs out wide and straight. Or if you have any discomfort in your low back, the alternative to that is to take constructive rest, bend your knees, plant your feet wide, and let your knees fall to each other. We'll be here for a minute, so allow yourself to settle in. Let everything relax. Let your body be heavy. We will stay on our backs for the next pose. So take a moment to just bend your knees, hug your knees into your chest. You can rock a little bit side to side. This next pose is stirrup pose, and there's two different options. You can either take the full variation, which means taking both sides at the same time. It's sort of like happy baby pose, but in yin it's called stirrup pose. You could grab your feet, either the inside or outside edges of your feet, and bring your feet up over your knees and your knees out wide. And arms should be towards the inside of your legs. And you should be feeling a little gentle stretch here for the inner legs, your groin area. If this is too much to do both feet at the same time, you could hold on to just your right foot for now. And I just want to make sure I'm timing this. And bring your left foot down either with your knee bent and your foot planted, or your left leg out straight if you want to take just one side at a time. And I'll tell you when we're halfway through. We'll take a total of 4 minutes here. So if you're taking half, it would be 2 minutes on each side. But I will still let you know when we're halfway, just to give you a sense of where we're at. The other thing here is you want to try to keep your tailbone down onto your mat. So think about pressing your tailbone down towards your mat so that your whole spine is down. And keep your shoulders and your head heavy. So if you find that your shoulders are lifting off the mat to hold onto your feet, especially as we hold too, if your arms get tired, you could bring your hands to the backs of your thighs instead and just keep your feet up and your knees out wide. It's another option here if your arms get tired or if you find that your shoulders are lifting away from the mat. Just for a point of reference, we are halfway through. Even though we are using some upper body strength here, we want to try to relax the muscles as much as possible. In our yin practice, we want to be accessing those deeper, denser tissues. So the more we can relax the muscles, the more we can work with the fascia, the tendons, ligaments. And then this last minute of the pose, if you want to play with straightening your legs, you could straighten just one at a time, or you could straighten both legs. You can play and see what feels good in your body. Maybe that feels good, maybe it doesn't. If you try it out, you could always come back to your knees bent. My legs get a little shaky if I stay in this variation with the legs straight for too long, so I like to take a few breaths and then come back to the knees bent. We have just a few more breaths here. Bend your knees, hug your knees back into your chest. And then set your feet back down onto your mat. You can bring the feet wide. Let your knees fall to each other. Take just a few breaths here. Let your arms have a break. Let yourself relax. And hug your knees back into your chest. You can rock a little side to side. And then if your surface is comfortable enough for you, you can rock the length of your spine a few times to come up. If your surface is uncomfortable, you could just roll to the side to come up. And then we will set up for dragon pose. Yes, we're doing dragon today. So if you have a pillow and you want to use that to support underneath your knee that's back, you can certainly use that. Or you can roll up the back of your mat in a way that it's kind of loosely rolled to about the halfway point to create a cushion for your knee. So either way, pillow or your mat, you'll bring your left knee onto that cushion that you've created and step your right foot forward into a lunge. And our goal here is to stretch the left hip flexor, so the leg that's back. So what I like to do here is curl the left toes under to lift my knee up, send the knee back a little bit, set down on that fleshy part of the knee. And then you can, few options with your hands here. You can bring them up onto your right thigh, which when I'm more lifted in my torso, that helps me to access and get a better stretch here for the hip flexors of the leg that's back. Other options are if you do have a water bottle, you could use that in place of a block. You could use maybe one hand on your water bottle, other hand on your thigh, or if you brought it behind your heel, you could use both hands on your water bottle. And relax your shoulders out of your ears. Relax your head. And for this one, I'll give you another mantra to focus on because it's helpful, I find, in this pose in particular, to have something for my mind to do, to take my mind off of the pose. So for this one, let's use creativity is flowing through me. Creativity is flowing through me. And just for a point of reference, we're halfway through this side. And if at any point you want to change the position of your hands, your upper body, I usually use one hand to either side of my foot when I'm down. Some people like to have both hands to the inside. This depends on what feels better for you. We're in the last minute. Just a few more breaths. And then to come out, if you still have your hands up, bring your hands down onto either side of your foot. Start to shift your hips back over the left knee. Flex your right toes back towards you. Straighten your right leg. Just take a moment there. And then drag that right heel back. We'll set up for the other side. So bring your right knee now onto whatever cushion you're using, whether it's your mat or your pillow. And step your left foot forward into a lunge. And if you don't immediately feel that stretch in your right hip flexors, you can try that adjustment of curling your right toes under, sending that right leg back a little bit longer, and then bringing the top of your foot back down. Be sure you're not putting a bunch of weight and pressure onto your patella, the kneecap. You want that weight more on the fleshy part of your knee. Set yourself up with your upper body wherever it needs to be. If you do have water bottle or yoga block, you could use that underneath your hands or hands up onto your thigh. Lengthen your tailbone down and back. You can also adjust the intensity of this pose by the position of the foot that's forward. So if you want more, you bring your foot further away from you. So you're in a bigger, wider lunge. Or if you need less, bring your foot in closer. Relax your shoulders, soften your gaze, or even close your eyes. And we'll come back to that mantra if you want a mantra to focus on, if you'd like to use it. Creativity is flowing through me. Creativity is flowing through me. And to let you know where we're at in the pose, we just reached the halfway point. So if at any point you need to adjust anything, your position of your upper body, your hands, how far forward your left foot is, you can adjust as needed. Three more long, full breaths. And then to start to come out of this pose, bring your hands down to your mat if they're not there already. Start to shift your hips back over your right knee. Flex your left toes back towards you, straighten your left leg. Take a couple of breaths there. And then slowly drag that left heel back. And move whatever you were using underneath your knees for support, whether it was your rolled up mat or your pillow. And to make your way back down onto your back. You might find as you come into this pose, maybe your legs feel a little bit longer now that we've stretched those hip flexors. If you have been experiencing any low back pain, you might find after doing that pose, it helps relieve that a bit. By stretching the hip flexors, the psoas being one of our major hip flexors, it helps to maybe relieve if the psoas was kind of pulling your pelvis out of alignment and causing any low back pain. And bend your knees, hug your knees into your chest. You could take a little rock side to side. And then either roll to the side or rock the length of your spine a few times to come up. And we'll set up for our next pose, which is child's pose. And in child's pose for this, for our yin practice, we want to make sure the knees are out nice and wide so that you have plenty of space to bring your torso down. Big toes together. And as you come down and reach your arms forward and send your hips back towards your heels, if you want a little extra support, you can bring your pillow underneath your chest. The other thing in this pose, if you find that this is a lot of compression for your knees, and if you're getting any pain in your knees, to come a little bit out of that compression, you could bring your pillow between your heels and your butt to just keep the hips elevated a little bit off of the heels so that you're not putting as much pressure on the knees. If that still bothers your knees, another thing you could do is take washcloths, small towels, roll those up and bring those behind your knee crease to provide some cushion within that knee crease. Another thing you could do if you are having any ankle issues is same thing, a towel or 2 small towels underneath, rolled up underneath your ankles. If you have any shoulder stuff going on and it's uncomfortable for your shoulders to reach your arms forward, you could bring your palms together and bring the thumbs to the back of your neck, or you could just bring your arms in a little closer so they're not stretched as far forward. And soften the space between your shoulder blades. In this pose, I'm hoping that you're feeling a stretch for your inner legs, your groin. If any of you are really open and are not feeling much of a stretch there and you want a more intense variation, you could come out and come into prone frog pose for the second half. And that it would be to, your knees are still wide, but then your ankles are lined up with your knees and your toes are out, and then walk forward. So that's prone frog if you wanted to take that variation. And same thing there, if you took that variation, you could bring a pillow underneath your forearms. One more minute. then press into your hands. Come into a tabletop. Lift your hips back away from your heels. Bring them over your knees. And then walk yourself all the way forward onto your stomach. We'll come into crocodile pose. So that's to stack one hand on top of the other. Bring your forehead down onto your hands or your mat and let your legs fall behind you and just relax your legs. This is another reset pose, so we're here for about a minute. And bring your self into Sphinx pose, so your elbows are underneath your shoulders, your forearms are parallel to each other with your palms face down. We'll set up from here for cat pulling its tail pose. So you'll probably want a pillow to come to support underneath you, so you can bring that to the left upper corner of your mat. And then right leg comes into like a half floor frog. So that's to lift up your right knee, set it down so that your knee is lined up with your hip, your ankle, with your knee, flex your foot. Then you're going to prop yourself up onto your left hand. Reach back with your right hand for your left foot. And this is where if you can't quite reach your foot, if you have a towel, you could bring the towel around your foot, which... see if I can grab this one. And then you can lean back onto, if you put a pillow on that left side of your mat, so that you come into a twist. And as you come into this twist, you might find that your right knee lifts away from the floor a little bit. And that's okay as long as it feels like your leg isn't holding on a lot. If it does feel like your leg is holding on, you could bring another pillow underneath that knee and use your right hand or your towel, if you have it, to create a stretch in the front of that left thigh. And some of you might be able to come all the way down onto your back with your shoulders, both shoulders down. I like to have a pillow there for some support. So we've got a lot of things going on with this pose. We've got the twist, we've got a stretch for the front of the left thigh, and then you might also be feeling a stretch for your IT band. As you settle in here, you might close your eyes. I'll give you another mantra if you would like to focus on something. Life is pleasurable. Life is pleasurable. We're halfway through. If your arm gets tired, you can just relax out of that stretch for your quads for a little bit. We have 1 more minute on this side. Then to come out of this pose, release your foot first. As you roll yourself back onto your stomach, you can lift up your right knee and send that leg back. And come back to Sphinx pose so that you are on your stomach with your elbows underneath your shoulders, forearms down, and stretch your legs back. And we'll set up for the other side. So you can bring that left knee into our floor frog, which is with your knee in line with your hip and then ankle underneath your knee. So it's like you're creating a 90-degree angle there with your leg. Prop yourself up onto your right hand. So you're kind of just relaxing here. Reach back with your left hand for your right foot. Or if you needed the towel, you can kind of get your towel around your foot and then grab either side of the towel. And then as you can start to lean back onto either a pillow, or you can use your arm too, your right arm as a pillow here if you can get mostly back, but you just need a little bit of support. Or maybe all the way down onto your back, depending on your body and what's possible for you. And my left knee actually didn't lift away from the mat as much as my right knee did, so I'm not going to use a pillow here. But if you did find that left knee lifted away a lot and it feels like your leg is holding on, you could tuck a pillow underneath there. And for that stretch for your right quadriceps, the front of the right thigh, you can either use your hand to bring your heel in closer to you, or you can kick your foot into your hand a bit. They might give you a different type of stretch or a different position of that stretch, so you might play with both of those since we are holding here for 5 minutes. You might also be feeling a stretch for the left IT band on the outer left leg. We're also getting a twist for the spine. So lots of great things going on in this pose. If you'd like a mantra to focus on for this second half of this pose, I'll offer another one associated with the second chakra. It's I am a sensual being. I am a sensual being. And to come out, start by releasing your right foot first. Roll yourself back onto your stomach, and as you do that, lift up your left knee, send it back. And we'll come into back to crocodile pose. So stack one hand over the other, forehead down onto your hands. Relax your legs. Take a few breaths here. And bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Press yourself through a tabletop. And then we'll make our way down onto our backs, back into our final pose, Shavasana, corpse pose. So as you make your way down onto your mat, take any adjustments that you need. If you want any props to help support you in your final pose, or a blanket or anything if you're cold, set yourself up. If as you come onto your back with your legs out straight, if you find that you have any discomfort in your low back, take a moment in constructive rest. Take a few breaths there. Otherwise, if your back's feeling good, you can just bring your legs out straight, your arms out, down by your sides. Flip your palms up. Move anything out of your way that might be interfering. And get yourself nice and cozy on your mat. And as you settle in here, bring your awareness back to your pelvis, your pubic bone. Feel the heaviness of your pelvis. Imagine that color orange and that wheel of energy that's located there. Your second chakra. Now allow for another minute here of just stillness and silence. If you haven't already, start to deepen and lengthen your breath. Start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Roll out your ankles and your wrists. Take a nice big full body stretch. Reach your arms up overhead, your legs out straight. Let your back arch. Bend your knees. Roll onto either side. Just come into a fetal position with your arm as a pillow to whichever side you roll to. And whichever hand is free, press into that hand to make your way up. We'll come back to seated. And to close out our practice, come into however you feel comfortable sitting. Sit up nice and tall. Roll those shoulders back. Bring your head back over your shoulders, hands together at your heart. Close your eyes. And know as you go back out into your day, like water, as you encounter challenges, as you encounter things that maybe change the direction that you thought you were going, know that you have the creativity, you have the mobility and the ability to change course and find a new direction, to stay in the flow. Exhale all of your breath. Big inhale through your nose. And let it go. Thank you for joining me for practice today. To the beautiful light in each of you. Namaste.